Dr. Sarah Chen had accepted many strange realities since joining the Interspecies Research Station on Kepler 442b. She had learned to sleep through the station's artificial gravity fluctuations. She had mastered the art of eating lunch while three-headed Voltarians debated philosophy at volumes that could shatter glass. She had even grown accustomed to the sulfuric smell that the Metharian engineers emitted when stressed, but nothing had prepared her for becoming a teacher to a pack of Kryn cubs. It started 3 weeks ago during her mandatory outdoor observation period. The station's xenobiologists insisted all personnel spend time in the surrounding wilderness to appreciate the local ecosystem. Sarah had found a comfortable spot beneath a crystalline tree, pulled out her worn paperback copy of Pride and Prejudice, and lost herself in Austen's world. She hadn't noticed the eyes watching her from the purple undergrowth. The Kryn were apex predators, sleek, six-legged creatures with obsidian scales and intelligent amber eyes. Adult Kryn stood nearly 8 feet tall and could tear through reinforced steel with their retractable claws. They were one of the few species humans had encountered that still lived tribally, rejecting technology in favor of their natural supremacy. The cubs, however, were curious. Sarah had been deeply engrossed in Elizabeth Bennet's latest verbal sparring with Mr. Darcy when she felt the weight settle beside her. She looked up slowly, her training kicking in. Never make sudden movements near predator species. A Kryn cub, barely the size of a large dog, sat 3 feet away. Its head tilted in that universal gesture of confusion. It was staring at her book. "Hello there," Sarah whispered, keeping her voice calm. The cub's ears, delicate and leaf-shaped, swiveled toward her. Its eyes tracked from her face to the book and back again. For 10 minutes, neither moved. Sarah eventually returned to reading, too committed to her chapter to let alien fauna interrupt Darcy's first proposal. The cub watched, transfixed, as her eyes moved across the pages, as her fingers turned each leaf of paper. When Sarah finally stood to return to the station, the cub didn't follow. It simply watched her go, its amber eyes gleaming with something that looked remarkably like understanding. The next day, when Sarah returned to her reading spot, 3 cubs waited for her. They sat in a semicircle, patient as scholars. When she settled down and opened her book, they edged closer, their massive paws silent on the moss. Sarah read aloud this time, feeling slightly ridiculous, but unable to resist their obvious interest. "In vain have I struggled," she read, her voice carrying across the clearing. "It will not do. My feelings will not be repressed." The cubs' ears twitched at each word, their heads moving in sync as if following music only they could hear. On the 3rd day, they brought her a gift. The smallest cub approached with something clutched carefully in its jaws, a flat piece of bark, roughly rectangular, with natural grain patterns that resembled text. It placed the bark at Sarah's feet and sat back, expectant. Sarah's throat tightened with emotion. "You want me to read this?" The cub's tail swished once. Affirmative. She picked up the bark, turning it over in her hands, and began to narrate its features as if it were the most fascinating manuscript ever written. "This is a piece of Kepler 442b crystalline willow bark," she said, adopting her best nature documentary voice. "Note the unique grain patterns formed over decades of growth. The color variation here suggests exposure to high mineral content in the soil." The cubs hung on every word. After that, the gifts never stopped. They brought her rocks with interesting mineral deposits. They brought her leaves from 12 different species of plants. They brought her the shed scale of an adult Kryn, iridescent and beautiful. Once they brought her a small, confused lizard analog, which Sarah carefully examined before releasing while explaining concepts of biodiversity and ecological niches. Word spread through the research station. Scientists from 7 different species found excuses to observe the humans' teaching sessions. Dr. Vex Hara, a Kryn xenoanthropologist and one of the few of her species working in academic settings, stood at the tree line one afternoon, her massive form barely concealed by the foliage. "Do you understand what you've done?" she asked Sarah after the cubs had departed. "Probably broken several non-interference protocols," Sarah guessed. "You've taught them that knowledge can be gathered and shared," Dr. Vex Hara said, her voice reverent. "Kryn culture has always celebrated strength, hunting prowess, territorial dominance, but you sat beneath a tree, studying dead plant matter covered in symbols, and you made it look like the most powerful thing in the world." Sarah glanced at her book. "It is, though, isn't it?" Dr. Vex Hara's laugh was a purring rumble. "Humans, you're all insane. Every species in the galaxy tries to impress others with their strengths. We show our claws, the Voltarians demonstrate their computational abilities, the Matharians showcase their engineering. But you? You share your curiosity. You make learning irresistible. Is that bad? 3 of those cubs you've been teaching, they're from the High Pack, the leadership clan. Their parents are traditionalists who believe technology makes species weak. But their children now spend every day bringing you objects to study. They're creating their own form of scientific method, Sarah, because of a human and a book." The next week, Sarah arrived at her spot to find not 3 cubs waiting, but 7, then 12, then 20. She had become the station's unofficial ambassador to an entire generation of Kryn youth. The cubs brought increasingly complex objects, mechanical pieces from old crashed probes, circuit boards, even a data pad someone must have lost years ago. Sarah studied each item with the same reverence she'd shown that first piece of bark. She explained what she knew, admitted what she didn't, and most importantly, she showed them how to observe, how to question, how to wonder. 6 months later, when the first Kryn cub appeared at the research station's gates, requesting access to the library, the galaxy took notice. Humanity had done what all their weapons and treaties could not. They'd shared the simple, revolutionary act of reading, of learning, of studying the universe, one curious question at a time. And the predators had brought them the greatest gift in return, the next generation of scholars.